All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. My name is Stephen Michaels. This is the number one Raiders podcast in the world. This is the Raiders Daily. Okay, as you know, I do these shows usually after every 2 games. That's what I've been trying to do all season long. I'm going to be honest with all of you listeners here on this fantastic podcast. I don't have a lot of time to be doing these podcasts because I am busy with the greatest subscription group in the world, the Raiders Daily Elite, where I do my live video shows throughout the week, plus all the news I post and, Raider fans, our chats, and all our stuff we do there. The best place in the world for Raider fans. Anyways, about that, by the way, there is one spot available if you do want to join. Remember, it is a subscription group, and you got to have a Facebook and a PayPal. So anyways, with that being said, let's talk about your Oakland Raiders. The 5-4 Oakland Raiders. This is a team that is coming off a huge victory against I almost called them San Diego, the LA Chargers. The Raiders win 26-24. This was a fantastic game. A game where, I really think the Raiders probably could have beaten the Chargers by a lot more than 2 points, to be honest. But, like I always say, and remember this, a win is a win. So I don't really care if they win by 1 point or 50 points. At the end of the day, I just, obviously you would like to see this team blow out someone. These nail biter games, you're biting your fingernails, you're worried, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, look at this Chargers game. Daniel Carlson. After Derek Carr leads this team all the way down to a touchdown. What does Daniel Carlson do? He misses an extra point, and there's, I don't know what, like a minute or 40 seconds left on the clock. I don't really remember now, but, there's time for Phillip Rivers definitely to get in field goal range and win the game for the Chargers, because the Raiders, instead of being up by 3, they were only up by 2 after that fantastic, and I mean fantastic drive for the Raiders and Derek Carr to go ahead. It ended up being the game-winning touchdown, but man, Daniel Carlson, that's got to end. You cannot be missing extra points. And he's been missing field goals too. That's something, we'll get to this later about being a playoff team, but that's something you got to make sure that you got the right kicker, because you don't want to lose an important game because of a kicker. That is the worst you can't lose. You cannot lose. That's the worst way to lose possible, is because of a kicker. But anyways, the Raiders do handle business. They do take care of the LA Chargers. A big divisional win. Before that game, because I haven't spoke about it here, I don't believe, the Raiders do take care of business against the Detroit Lions, which was a huge game, a huge test for the Raiders, and they came through in that game. Before that, I already talked about that. I believe that was my last show when the Raiders lost against the Texans. That was really disappointed. Listen, that game, it could come back to haunt the Raiders, depending on how this season unfolds here. Because that game has so many tiebreaker implications. That's why John Gruden, after the game, he said it, 3 times. Derek Carr probably said it about 4 times. And all his pressers after the game and throughout that week. That was a crucial loss. There is no doubt about it. But like I said, after that game, The only way the Raiders could really save themselves is if they win against the Lions, against the Chargers, against the Bengals, against the Jets, and then, of course, if the Raiders, which we'll get into, the Bengals and the Jets, and when they get to the Chiefs, if they get to the Chiefs, and they win against the Bengals, then they win against the Jets. That game against the Chiefs, I'm telling you right now, will be Derek Carr's biggest game of his career. Let's remember here, Derek Carr has been playing well. In my opinion, he's been playing better than he has ever played before. Now, I know people want to say, oh, well, he's not taking a lot of shots down the field. Listen, he doesn't really have a number one wide receiver. He doesn't. He just doesn't have that right now. I think with time, Zay Jones might be able to get down the field. But here's the thing. You don't have to do that. In this system, which is, by the way, just not a standard West Coast scheme system. I hate when people say that. It's people who don't know football who say things like that. That's why I'm here, by the way, to educate you guys and tell you guys the facts instead of you guys listening to some random Raider fan that says, win, lose, or tie. I'm Raider Nation till I die. Well, I say screw that because I don't like losing. I hate losing. I cover this team and I expect them to win. And you, if you're a Raider fan, you should expect victories. You shouldn't say, oh, I'm happy they lost. I'm happy it was a tie, because that is BS. You damn well know you do not like losing. And if you do, well, then there's something wrong with you. But anyways, that Chiefs game, just go on a little rant there for a second. That Chiefs game, that is going to be huge. And Derek Carr, like I said, he's been playing the type of football which John Gruden wants. This is exactly what he wants. And it's working out perfectly. Now, Derek Carr has been doing things that maybe, fans at home are not really seeing. The reason why I think he's been improving. First of all, now, he hasn't been doing this all season. I want to make that clear. But in the last couple of weeks, Derek Carr has been looking spectacular. And this is why. First of all, Derek Carr, you can tell, is trusting his protection a lot more in these football games. That's number one. He's not getting all antsy back there and making a bad decision. Okay? Yes, there are a few times where he could have done something better. Yes, he does tend to overthrow wide receivers in the first quarter for some reason. I don't know why. That is a flaw. Yes, I'll give, the biggest Derek Carr haters, or I don't like this word haters, by the way. I'm not a 13-year-old girl. I don't know why I just used that word. But the people who don't like Derek Carr, who criticize him, that's one of the things, whatever. But other than that, this guy has been dialed in. And one of the things I like is, like I said, he's not getting scared in the pocket. Number 2, he is sliding in the pocket. Number 3, he is using his legs to maneuver back there. He is stepping up. When the protection starts to break down, he does what great quarterbacks do, like an Aaron Rodgers, even a Tom Brady, who, the guy's 100 years old and he still does it. He steps into the pocket, just a few steps to buy a couple more seconds to find his target. And with Derek Carr here, remember, they don't have Antonio Brown anymore. Well, they never did, but they don't have an Antonio Brown type wide receiver. So what he's using is guys, they're tight ends. Darren Waller, in my opinion, he is the best tight end in the National Football League. There is no doubt about it. But as you've been watching these games, you probably notice that Darren Waller has not been getting a lot of targets. That's because these teams have been doubling him a lot. So now Derek Carr has to find other targets. So that's the way it's been working. Also, one of the reasons why Derek Carr looks better, a lot better right now than he has in the past, very simple. His name is Josh Jacobs. This guy is a game changer, okay? And remember, they got Josh Jacobs basically for Khalil Mack. And if I'm looking right now at the season, I'll take that trade straight up. Because Josh Jacobs makes plays. Because Josh Jacobs changes outcomes of football games. What has Khalil Mack been doing this season? Is he changing outcomes of football games? No! The Chicago Bears suck! And that is good for Raider fans, by the way, because the Raiders own their first round draft pick next season as well. So, I mean, this is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, I'm not joking. Now, in full disclosure, I am more of an offensive guy than a defensive guy. That's just the way I am. But I would much rather have Josh Jacobs than Khalil Mack. Because Josh Jacobs, he just takes the life out of the defense. And, I mean, we don't need any more proof. The Raiders, it was already Josh Jacobs versus Khalil Mack. We've already seen that battle. Josh Jacobs won. John Gruden beat Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is nothing. He is nothing. He has to be surrounded by good talent to make him look good. Now, yes, let me rephrase that. Khalil Mack's a good player. But what I'm saying is he needs a lot of great talent around him. And he didn't have that with the Raiders. And if the Raiders would have paid him all of that money, there is no Josh Jacobs. This team probably only does win 3 games this season. So that's why that trade that John Gruden made when everyone was criticizing him, besides me, I knew it was smart. Because I knew John Gruden, first of all, was tearing down that entire roster, even though I had Raider fans coming at me saying, oh no, they're not going to let go of this guy. They're not going to let go of every single guy. I mean, to Garyon Conley, to you name it. They're telling me Amari Cooper. And I knew John Gruden wanted to get rid of every single one of those guys. I knew it. Even guys like Justin Ellis. I knew Gruden was he didn't like any of those players. I believe there's only like 6 of them around. I don't even know if it is 6. I think it's 6. But speaking of guys that were around before Gruden, Eric Harris. Now, listen, Eric Harris, nicest dude in the world, okay? As you know on this show, I am brutally honest. And I don't have no agenda or anything like that. What I do is I put on the tape. I watch the film. And trust me, I watch these games more than I care to admit. Condensed versions. But, man, do I watch a lot of them. Eric Harris, I've always said this, and it worried me when he was, a starter, named a starter on this team. I just didn't think this guy, I think he's a good special teams player, but a starting safety? Now, I know he's more a rotational guy with the Raiders defense, comes in and out with Paul Gunther's defense, which is very complex. But anyways, I gotta say something. Eric Harris makes me look like a dummy. Because Eric Harris was spectacular against the LA Chargers. This guy should have had like 4 interceptions. But I think he had 3. He had 1 that, he ran back for a touchdown. I mean, this guy was coming up clutch time and time again. That defense against that Chargers team is the defense that I've been looking for this entire season. They were finally getting after Phillip Rivers. They were getting after the quarterback. Phillip Rivers couldn't do nothing. He had Max Crosby's long arms in his face. He had Clinton Farrell, who's finally showed up, by the way, going after him. The Raiders just sent blitzes at this guy. Fake blitzes, dummy blitzes. They were doing whatever they wanted. They were mixing zone into man. They were confusing the hell out of Phillip Rivers, and the Raiders just gave constant pressure up the middle. Now, that was the game plan going into that game, which, by the way, you would have known that if you are a TRD Elite subscriber, because it's something I spoke about before that game. But anyways, that was the game plan going into that game. Get pressure up the middle. They felt like they could disrupt Rivers, and he would throw picks. He would throw interceptions based on what the coaches watched on tape. And they were right. John Gruden was right on this one. That's exactly what happened. All Eric Harris had to do basically is be a quarterback spy. Stay at home. Wait for Phillip Rivers to throw one right to him. And that's exactly what happened in that game. The Raiders needed that win badly. They needed a divisional win badly. If they wanted any hopes of the playoffs, they needed to win that game, and they did that. It was a spectacular victory. It really was. Like I said, and I'll get into it right now, I wish the score would have been a bit bigger. I wish the Raiders would have won by maybe a couple of touchdowns. And that's one thing that concerns me about this team. All of these close wins, I don't like that. The reason why I don't like that is because I remember back in 2016, this team went 12-4. They won all these games. But if you really go back and watch those games, all of them were won by, a last-minute field goal or the opposing team missing a field goal at the end of the game. Stuff like that. I mean, they had a lot of luck. Derek Carr throwing passes that should have been intercepted to end the game, but the guy drops it. Stuff like that just over and over and over again. And I've been saying this for I don't know how long now. That season, guys, it was a fluke. Because look what happened the very next season. I know people want to bring up, well, they changed offensive coordinators. Listen, they were pretty much running the same kind of stuff. It was just they got a lot of luck that season. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you need luck. It's the NFL. But I do want to see this Raiders team, this is where I'm getting at. When you watch these football games with the Raiders, I do notice that if you just go ahead and look at the box score of some of these games, you will notice that the Raiders, they don't ever play 4 quarters on offense. They don't. It's like they'll score 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, but then in the third quarter, they don't do nothing. And then in the fourth quarter, they'll score 10 and they'll win the game or something like that. You know what I mean? But it's constant. It's always 1 quarter out of a game where the offense does nothing. They go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And you can't do that. It hurt them against the Kansas City Chiefs when the Chiefs put up 28 straight points on them, if you remember. I mean, that doesn't happen unless your offense just lets it happen. And that's what happened in that game. It was the second quarter, and the Raiders' offense just, I don't know, they stalled out. And meanwhile, just kept going 3 and out. And every time they went 3 and out, what happened? Mahomes, touchdown. Mahomes, touchdown. Before you know it, the game was out of hand. But that, yes, is bad. But that's also a little bit of good news. Because if you think about that game, the Chiefs, they won because they scored so much just in 1 quarter. If you take that, I think John Gruden said it the best there. They ran into a buzzsaw, and that's exactly what they did. If you take that away and the offense, just stops the bleeding and has maybe 2 good drives in that game that keep their defense off the field, I guarantee you that game is different. But that is something that concerns me. It happened with the Vikings as well. The Raiders' offense just stalls out. And when you have a defense, let's be honest here, they have not been playing very good other than last week, that you're going to get destroyed. When your defense can't stop anything, your offense needs to score, and they need to score a lot. So going forward, what I would like to see out of this team, especially this week, when they are going up against a winless team and the Cincinnati Bengals. This team is winless. They are going to start a rookie quarterback over Andy Dalton. which is kind of crazy to me, but it looks like they're Dalton's finished. And fun fact, by the way, Andy Dalton actually has, it's crazy, I posted it on Twitter, I believe, or it might have been the Raiders Daily Elite, I'm not sure. But Andy Dalton actually has more passing yards this season than Derek Carr. Isn't that insane? But he's benched. Ryan Finley is the guy. And I think the Raiders have a good opportunity here to do what I was saying. Put together a 60-minute football game and just blow a team out. Because I think that this Oakland Raiders team, they need that. They need that feeling of being able to control the entire game. In a perfect world, I would like to see Mike Glennon starting in the fourth quarter because the Raiders are up by more than 4 touchdowns. Now they're playing against the Bengals. This game, I'm telling you, yes, I think the Raiders are going to win. But I'm going to give you a warning right now. This is a type of game that could easily be a trap game. They got this game and the Jets. One of those games could easily be a trap game. Now, it's probably more likely that it would be the Jets, since the Raiders would have to travel all the way to New York. I could see them getting caught off guard and blowing it. I could see that happening. It happens all the time. It really does. If you want proof, go look at last week's games. The Atlanta Falcons defeated the New Orleans Saints. So it could happen. Now, I hope it doesn't happen because I want to see this team go on a run. But what I really want to see is I want to see this Raiders team take care of Cincinnati first. They have them in Oakland. Give those fans something, let them have fun. Let's not have no nail biter game. Let's not have this thing go down to the wire against Ryan Finley and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 0-9. Let's not have that. You're going up against a team, first of all. Now, the Raiders defense, as you know, is not very good. Last week, they were excellent. Max Crosby, he's been playing great all year. I know it might not show up on the sacks and stuff like that, but if you just watch this guy play, getting his hands up, disrupting the quarterback, just setting the edge very well against the run. I mean, really, really good. This guy, I'm telling you one thing right now, Max Crosby, he's playing like he's the 4th overall pick in the draft. He really is. I mean, he's better than Clelin Ferrell right now. Clelin Ferrell, yes, he did get a couple sacks. What did he get? 2 sacks, I believe, against the Chargers. I could be wrong. But I definitely know he got going in that game. He did look better in that game. But I want to see more out of him. But also, I must remind all of you Raider fans, remember, when the Raiders, I talked about Khalil Mack earlier, remember, when Khalil Mack was a rookie, he was not exactly lighting the world on fire. So give Clelin Ferrell a little break. Also remember, guys, this is a harsh reality that maybe some of you guys don't want to hear. But I'm honest. This team is still rebuilding. They are in rebuild mode. It's still happening. And it's not going to stop until about 2021, which is probably when everything's going to be finished. Next year, obviously, they're going to be way more competitive. But, I mean, they still got draft picks and things like that coming up. Lots of them. So they're still in rebuild mode. And I know for a fact, John Gruden, I mean, after that Texans game, he was looking at it like maybe the season's over. But after those 2 wins, there's a lot of momentum in that locker room. A lot of momentum. And these guys, these young players, some veteran players, they think they can do it. They think they can go on a run. Now, injuries have hurt this team, no doubt about it. Carl Joseph, who, I mean, Jesus, this guy's coming off the best game of the season, and he gets injured. LaMarcus Joyner, he's probably not going to play against the Bengals. You got Josh Morrow, who's constantly dealing with that groin injury. They got a lot of injuries. They brought in DJ Swearinger. We'll see how he plays. I don't really know. The guy's been a free agent. Deion Jordan, it's one of those things. We got to wait and see with that, to be honest. I'm not ready to say, hey, this guy's going to be, the best on the Raiders defensive line. I'm not ready to say that just yet. Let's see him play first. But it's a low risk, high reward type thing. If the guy sucks, the Raiders just cut him. It's not like they're paying him a lot of money. Same thing with Swearinger. They would just have to go get someone else. But anyways, just looking at this game against the Bengals, let's talk about it real quickly. Now, the Raiders come in. They have the 8th best rushing offense in the NFL. Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Washington, who, I gotta be honest, his vision isn't that great. He's hit or miss. Jalen Richard was a ghost until about 2 games ago. And then all of a sudden, John Gruden said, I can use him in the pass game. He's not really good in the run game that much, but look at him showing up in the pass game. And the Raiders, remember, I don't know if you guys know this, but they've been trying out running backs. And one of the guy that they were going to cut was Jalen Richard. But now, Jalen Richard's doing things. But the Raiders, by the way, are still looking at running backs. Doesn't mean Jalen Richard's going to get cut. They could carry 4 running backs if they find one who they feel like can help. They've been trying out a lot of veterans. They tried out Blunt. They tried out Spencer Ware. They tried out a bunch of guys. C.J. Anderson. I would keep my eyes on Spencer Ware, though, going forward. I heard he had the best workout. Anyways, back to this Bengals game. I keep getting off track. All right, so the Raiders have the 8th best rushing offense in the NFL. Okay? They are going up against a Bengals team that is ranked dead last in rushing defense. Dead last, guys. So what do you think John Gruden is going to do in this game? He is going to run Josh Jacobs right at the Bengals. He is going to run all 3 of his backs. He's going to run Alec Ingold. You are going up against the worst in the NFL in rush defense. Now, speaking of rush defense, I got to go back to the Raiders on this. And I got to point something out that some of you guys might not like. I've been noticing in the last 3 weeks, definitely the last 2 weeks, and there's obviously other games that we could point to, like the Vikings game, the Raiders defense, they've been struggling against the run lately. Now, they got lucky. The Lions have Matthew Stafford, who's a pass-happy quarterback and wants to throw the ball every single play because the Lions were having success in running the football. Last week against the Chargers, Melvin Gordon was having a lot of success. I believe he went over 100 yards, I believe. I mean, this guy was having a lot of success running the football. But it's Phillip Rivers, and we know he likes to throw the ball. So luckily, Anthony Lynn, head coach for the Chargers, is a dummy, and he stopped running the ball. Luckily, the week before, Matt Patricia, another Patriots coordinator who teams, some reason, I don't know why teams think these guys are going to be great head coaches, but he's a dummy too. He starts throwing it, even though they're having success with using multiple backs running the football off the Raiders. That concerns me about this Bengals game. Again, I know they're 0-9. But like I said, trap games can happen. Things can happen. And when I look at the Raiders' run defense in the last couple of weeks, it hasn't been good. And now you're going up against a team in the Bengals with a rookie quarterback. You know they're going to run Joe Mixon. Now, Joe Mixon last week against the Ravens, he had 100 yards off the Ravens defense, but keep in mind that some of those yards came, the Ravens blew them out. So, some of that came in garbage time. But the Raiders still have to stay committed, and they have to stop the run. You want to stop the run against Ryan Finley and make Ryan Finley beat you. That's what you want to do. If Ryan Finley beats the Raiders, then the Raiders don't even, their record, none of it matters if they lose against the Bengals. The Raiders are an awful team if that happens. They're fool's gold. They're terrible. They stink if they lose against the Bengals. But they shouldn't. That's what I'm telling you. They should not lose this game. They should not lose this game. I mean, another thing. Their total defense, the Bengals, they're last in the NFL. Last in the NFL. Points per game on defense, they're 28th in the NFL. 28th in the NFL. I mean, they're not very good, guys. They're not, obviously, you know they're not very good. They're 0-9. But, I mean, even on their offense, their total offense, they're ranked 26. Their rush offense, you know, all they have is Joe Mixon and, what's his name, Bernard, who does, I don't know what the hell happened to that guy. It's like he hasn't shown up all season. They're ranked 30th. So hopefully the Raiders can stop a team who's ranked 30th in the running the football. They should be able to do this. And then points per game, I mean, they hardly score. They're ranked 29th. They average about 15 points a game. That's it. Meanwhile, the Raiders average around 23 points, which I want to see that number go up, by the way. That's one of the things I was saying about the Raiders. For some reason, I don't know why, they take a quarter off every single week. They can't do that. If you want to compete against really, really good teams and you want to beat them, you can't do that. That will come back to haunt you. You don't have to win all of these with 1 minute left in the game. I want to see the Raiders play the Bengals, but I want to see the Raiders destroy the Bengals. I want to see a game where it's 53-3. That's what I want to see. Remember a couple of years ago when the Raiders got beat by the Rams? It was like a 50, I think it was 50, might have been 53-3, I believe, or 50-3. I forgot what the score was, but they got embarrassed. I remember when they played against Jeff Driscoll from the Bengals, and they got embarrassed. Well, now I want the Raiders to embarrass the Bengals. And also remember, Paul Guenther is going to want to embarrass the Bengals. That's why as much as I say, it could be a trap game, I don't think it will be this game. I think if that does happen, it would happen against the Jets, but I still don't even think that will happen. But still, I'm just saying. I think Paul Guenther is going to be really dialed in. He's going to want to show the Bengals they made a huge mistake not making him the head coach of that team. The Raiders are going to blitz the hell out of Ryan Finley. They're going to do a lot of disguises to confuse him. They are going to throw everything at Ryan Finley and make this guy's head spin. And hopefully this Raiders defense, hopefully Eric Harris, hopefully he can get another 3 interceptions. Hopefully, a guy like Isaiah Johnson, who was supposed to play against the Chargers, I don't know what happened there, but he did not play. Hopefully he plays in this game, and we get to see a little bit of Isaiah Johnson, because the Raiders are going to need Isaiah Johnson going forward in this season. They really are. Now, like I said, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see DJ Swearinger and Dion Jordan, both of them, against the Bengals. I have a feeling we might see one, but not the other. But you never know. The Raiders might feel comfortable giving them limited snaps, have them go out there. I mean, Dion Jordan really doesn't have to do that much. You know what I mean? Just tell them, hey, go after the quarterback. Swearinger has obviously a tougher role there. But I want to see this team put it all together and destroy this team. I really do. Now, one thing that scares me about this Bengals game, and I do think it's worth pointing out here. The Bengals, even though they're terrible, right? Even though they're 0-9, I told you the stats, their defense, they're dead last. Points per game on defense, they're 28th. Third down on defense, they're 24th in the NFL, but the Raiders aren't any better. They're actually worse. They're 29th. That's got to change. But here's the thing. The Bengals, when it comes to being a disciplined team, they are. They really are. This team is ranked 5th in the NFL. They only have 406 penalty yards. Now, the Raiders, on the other hand, they're ranked 31st in the NFL with 737 penalty yards. That's something that also has to change in Oakland. These flags, now I understand some of them are completely nonsense. And I know Raider fans have their conspiracies and things like that. And listen, I can't even say that they're not true, to be honest with you. I watched the tape and it's crazy. I mean, that one interception that Eric Harris had last week against the Chargers got called back because they said Max Crosby, he was offsides. His hand was offsides. I want you guys to go look at that play and then just choose any game on YouTube, any NFL game from last week, and pause it at that right before the snap. I guarantee you will see 9 times out of 10 a player's hand exactly where Max Crosby's hands were. I mean, that play should have never been called back for a penalty. It really never should have been. I mean, that was just stupid. It really was. It didn't make an impact on the interception. I mean, the ref even threw that flag a little bit late. Usually when someone's offsides, boom, that flag's out right away. He waited until that ball was picked off. He waited. So that tells me something. That tells me, listen, I don't want to say, the refs are against the Raiders and that kind of thing, but that is weird. I'll tell you that. That is weird. But anyways, back to this game. Back to the Bengals. Like I said, the Raiders need to win this game. They really do. Now, Raider fans want to know about the playoffs, so I'm going to talk about that real quick before we end the show. Like I said, they need to take care of business against an 0-9 Cincinnati Bengals. Then they go all the way to New York. That's why I said it could be a trap game against the Jets, even though the Jets suck too. So the Raiders, if they are a good team, good teams beat bad teams, especially when they need to win. Now, the New Orleans Saints, like I said, flukes happen. The Falcons beat them. But, I mean, that's not going to ruin the New Orleans Saints season. I mean, it's not like the Saints are going to miss the playoffs because of that one loss. The Raiders really can't afford to lose. The good news is the Chiefs lost against the Titans, which means the Raiders are only a half game back from the Kansas City Chiefs. So you got the Bengals, you got the Jets, and that sets up Derek Carr's Super Bowl, in my opinion, and his future, in my opinion, when he goes to Arrowhead and plays the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember, Derek Carr has never won in Arrowhead. He has never beaten the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. And if you gotta have, if your franchise quarterback cannot beat your division rival in their own place, that's a problem. That's a problem. I mean, I'm so sorry, but that is a problem. I don't care how good Derek Carr is playing right now. He needs to beat the Chiefs. Because, as John Gruden would say, I mean, this is about winning Super Bowls. And you're never going to win a Super Bowl if you can't beat a division rival. Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere anytime soon. So that is a big game, and I know the Raiders can beat them. The Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill just beat the Chiefs. There is no excuse for it. Derek Carr must win that game. And listen, if the Raiders beat the Bengals and the Jets, and they beat those teams big, there's going to be a lot of momentum there. I would not count the Raiders out for that game. Then after that, right after that game, the Raiders play the Titans in a huge matchup. Like I just said, the Titans defeated the Chiefs. If the Raiders can defeat the Titans, wow, that's a tiebreaker game right there. So the Chiefs already beat the Raiders, and then if Raiders can beat the Chiefs and then beat the Titans, the Raiders would be in first place. And then you got Jacksonville, Chargers, and the Broncos. Now, depending on what the Chiefs do. Now, the hope is that maybe at the end of the season, the last game of the year, the Chiefs are playing the Chargers. Maybe the Chargers upset them. The Chargers win, and the Raiders can afford to maybe drop a game. That's the hope. Because, listen, these games are going to be tough. Jacksonville, that's going to be a tough game. The Chargers, we know that's going to be a tough game, which is a tough game now. But I do think Phillip Rivers is losing a little bit. I think the age is catching up to him, and the formula is there. You got to blitz him. And then they end the season against the Broncos. Yes, it's in Mile High, but the Raiders should be able to beat the Broncos. The Raiders have a good chance here, guys. I mean, when I look at this schedule, they really could run the table. They really could. If they are a good team, and Derek Carr is disciplined, they have no wasted quarters. Like I said, that drives me nuts. If they play all 60 minutes, and that defense plays like they did when they played against the Chargers, this team can run the table. And if they can run the table, they will win the AFC West. That's right. They will win the AFC West. Their best path to the playoffs is through the AFC West. The AFC wild card is so crowded. You know, you lost against the Texans. That hurts. You got the Steelers who are, the Steelers are getting a little momentum here. So and you got the Colts, even though the Raiders beat the Colts still got a better record. Plus you got Buffalo, who's pretty much, they're almost penciled in as having one of the spots. So there's only one other wild card spot available. I just think there are too many teams fighting over that one wild card spot when the Raiders don't have to fight for that. Why get a wild card when you can be divisional champions? And we will see if the Raiders can do just that. All right, everyone, I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks. We will know. Oh, yeah, and by the way, in 2 weeks, we will do a Raiders versus Chiefs preview show. Hopefully, when I talk to you guys again, the Raiders defeated the winless Bengals, and they went to New York and took care of business against the New York Jets, and then we have our game of the year. If they take care of business here next 2 weeks, this is the biggest game for the Raiders against the Chiefs in a long, long time. This is pretty much a playoff game. So, it's going to be very exciting. This team is playing at a very high level right now. Could get a little tiny bit better on offense. Defense needs to improve, but I like what I saw last week against the Chargers. Let's keep that going. Keep that momentum going. Let's put the pedal to the metal. This Raiders team, they could be a force to be reckoned with. We shall see. My name is Stephen Michaels. Thanks everyone for listening. This is the Raiders Daily.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.